this is something that if I were to purchase, I can just take it right out the box and hang it right up on an empty rusty nail in the wall. Right. Though that's the type of stuff that really draws me to certain pieces of artwork on this Goodwill website, and this is no different. What's going on, folks? Eddie Carrington, and today we are looking at art. Today I am actually shopping the Goodwill site. One of my favorite pastimes is to actually collect art, and I'm a fan of art, but my pockets are a little on the skimpy side, and so I always like to look for art that is sold at a discount. And one of the best places that I've come across that in turn gives me the ability to collect a budget art is the Goodwill website. The Goodwill website is a really good resource when it comes to purchasing art at a very good price, and not only purchasing it, but you have access to Goodwill's many stores across the country where people are donating art for whatever reason, and some good, some not, but at the end of the day, they do a really good job at packaging up the product and mailing it to you in a very secure method, very secure manner. And in some cases, you can get things delivered to you at $10, $11. In some scenarios, it's 1 cent shipping. And in some cases, it may cost 40, $50 plus, depending on if you're getting it from, let's say, the Santa Barbara Goodwill, and I'm in the Midwest, and so with me being in Michigan, it's a bit more of a traveled distance when it comes to purchasing things across the country, and therefore it's going to cost more money. But really big fan of Goodwill, and today I'm just going to bring you along with me as I kind of look around and see if there are any good opportunities for me to purchase. And by the way, all of this art behind me was purchased on Goodwill. I am in real estate, so you can kind of see that row of houses. I think I bought that for under $60. This is something from the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, and this incorporates a number of personal messages from some of the Olympians that competed in that Olympics. And then you can see here, this is a print, but this is a cool print of a storefront. I'm a big fan of retail, and so this is a print where you have your commercial on the ground level, and then you have your secondary level, which I'm envisioning as residential, but really cool. And actually, I don't know if that's a print or an actual drawing. So when I purchased it, it said it was a drawing and it looks original, but at the same time, I'm gonna assume that it's a print due to the fact that you just sometimes you just can't really tell when it comes to these types of artworks that you're buying. And then there is a very small piece here that I may show in a later video. But just overall, I have a wall, actually walls, plural, full of art that are from the Goodwill website and beyond. I also purchase webs or art via there are different government auction sites that I've bought art from before in the past, and we potentially may talk about those pieces in a later video. But once again, today I'm going to bring you along with me as I kind of scour the different artworks that are available on the Goodwill website. I am on the homepage of the Goodwill website, so shopgoodwill.com. And today I am going to just scroll down. They got a ton of cool stuff that you can buy: jewelry, laptops, you name it. Old antiques, old electronics, clothing, rugs, all types of stuff. But today, my primary focus is going to be for art. And so I'm going to click on that art bubble there. And this takes me into this screen. And so this allows for me to kind of go through their different offerings. As you can see here, pretty cool image of a priest. It looks like it's a painting going for 20 bucks. Not necessarily my cup of tea, but just kind of showing you the type of artwork that goes in some cases unsold. So here's a print, Cookson signed, framed, and art print that is going for 20 bucks. I typically try to stay away from prints because I don't think prints are as valuable as originals. So I always tend to like to look for paintings, drawings, potentially mixed media, things of that nature. In some cases, photography. I like old photos of family and individuals that have a uniqueness about them and from potentially a different era. In general, you got a lot of different art pieces that you can kind of scour and kind of do your research on. But here's one for 1999. Really, really nice painting. It's probably a watercolor. So let's look through here. It looks more like a watercolor than anything else, but really, really nice piece of art. Not something that I'm looking for today. I've been more or less focused on kind of buildings, architectural artwork, things like neighborhoods, homes, cities, cityscapes, things like that. So this is a pretty cool piece of art. It looks like it is an original. And so 1999, the Gateway Arch looks like St. Louis. And so sometimes if I'm interested, scroll down a bit, read a little bit more about the piece of artwork, talks about the dimensions. In this scenario, we're looking at a shipping price of $5.99. Not bad at all. So technically, if nobody else bids on this piece of artwork, I can get this for less than $30 shipped to my door. But as of now, that is not something that I am interested in. So I'm just going to continue to search through here and see if there are other options to consider for today. So this is more or less my speed. And this actually says that this is an ink drawing of a 2-story house with a chimney and porch. And this is the type of stuff that kind of catches my eye. The only concern about this is, once again, I'm not exactly sure if this is an original or if this is a print. This is a black and white drawing, and even though they're calling this an ink drawing, maybe it is based off of how they were able to kind of zoom in on the image and verify it in person. But from my vantage point, this is a bit of a riskier purchase when it comes to me not necessarily focusing on prints, but originals. But with that said, with me being in real estate, I do love art that encompasses houses, homes, neighborhoods. And so this could be something that I keep in mind and put a bid on. So if I scroll down, shipping price is at $6. So in theory, purchasing this piece, maybe it's an original, I can get it for less than $30. But before I move on, one of the things I like to do is do a little research about the artists in some cases. So in this scenario, they actually have the name of the artist within the title, and in some cases it's in the description. But this is where I can just click search Google, right? And so it brings up a number of folks, but what I'm looking for is Matt Barrett, the artist. So what I'm going to do is try to see if there are any trails of Matt that actually use penmanship and draws their work more so than paints or does any other type of craft, right? So here, this looks like maybe this is Matt Barrett, the individual that has created this piece of artwork. The only difference, however, is this is a little bit more funky, contemporary. This has a different flavor to it in comparison to this house, right? This house is a pretty safe drawing. And so could it be the same Matt that owns this Instagram page and has done these types of works? Maybe, maybe not. But with that said, this kind of gets me to a point where, hey, maybe even on top of me liking that house art, maybe it's a scenario where this piece of art has some type of value behind it as well, due to this being created by an established artist. So let's check out their Etsy page, and it looks like they have a flower painting for 45 bucks. Uh, and looks pretty good, right? But I'll keep this in mind, and this is kind of the process that I go through when I'm looking through these different pieces of artworks in order for me to make that determination on if I do think that this is a good buy or not. But obviously, that's not too fancy of a drawing, right? But it is something that I've been putting my energy and effort into over the last few months here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and just add that to my favorites and keep that in mind as I continue to go through this search of looking for new art that I could potentially add to my walls. Um, and so let's see what else we can find today. Look at this funky piece. This is an intriguing piece. A muffin, the most beloved dog on chair, portrait original landscape painting framed. Never seen a frame like that. Never seen a painting like that. That's pretty that's a pretty cool painting, to be honest. I don't know if the dog looks too happy, but nonetheless, that is a pretty cool painting. This one, I used to like contemporary acrylic paintings such as what you're seeing here, but I don't usually see these as something that holds value. I think they're cool pieces, and if done right, they can definitely bring life to a space. I'm not too happy about the colors with this, but at the end of the day, just wanted to check it out and lay a set of eyes on it. It looks doesn't look too bad. It's just not for me. Let's see, what else do we have here? Wow, this is pretty cool. Watercolor and ink painting, The Orange House by Thomas Meek, signed. Now we're talking. I love this painting here. Let's see if it's original. Once again, some cases they call it a watercolor painting, but it actually is a print. And I think this is the same ordeal. Even though is this 1955? So one of the things that kind of makes me wonder if this is original or a print is due to the fact that it's double signed, right? It's signed twice. You got a signature here, and then you have the copyright symbol here, but then you also have the title, but then also another signature here. And so whenever I see something like that, it makes me wonder if it's an actual print or if it is really an original piece of artwork. But I am going to add that to my favorites and keep an eye on it. Depending on the price, maybe it's something that I'm willing to put a bid on. But at the end of the day, that may or may not be original. This is pretty cool. 29 bucks. Let's see what size it is. 18 by 25. This would fill up a blank space on your wall pretty neatly. Nice colors. I love the frame. The frame is solid. Looks like it lasts a lifetime. So I'll add that to the list. Anne Elizabeth, multicolor. So this is already at 126 and it has 6 days left. This is probably going to go for a pretty high number. Not too big a fan of it. It looks cool. Not my cup of tea. I wouldn't know where to hang it at. I'm not sure if I am a fan of this frame, but it is cool to look at and to see the interest that it's garnering based off of the number of bids, even though it just pretty much hit the auction block earlier today or potentially yesterday. But let's see what else we got here. Oh wow, this is a cool painting. Megan Gossett, oil on canvas, gaslighting woman art painting. The detail looks great. And the word gaslighting, that's kind of a popular word for the youngins here nowadays. But and so maybe it is to that statement. But look at this. This thing says this artist wanted $2,000 for this piece of artwork, and I'm wondering if somebody bought it, but then eventually donated it to Goodwill for whatever reason. Maybe the artist in this scenario donated this piece of art because they weren't able to sell it. Who knows, right? I think in some cases there are artists that will donate their piece of artwork to Goodwill to garner some type of notoriety and attention, and collectors such as myself, I'm assuming by the hundreds if not thousands, go on this site and do what I'm doing, and maybe somebody decides to do this. They do a quick Google search of the artist. Let's see. And let's see what comes up. Let's see. Maybe this is the artist, maybe not. Let's check. Illustration, design. I would think this is not the artist because I don't see any paintings. Let's see here. Paintings. Let's see. But this is the process you go through. Let's see if we had the spelling incorrect. So if we click on that, let's see if it brings us up, or look at images. Let's check images and see if there are. Nope. So no real trail based off of that quick search. But at the end of the day, this is what it takes. Wait a minute. Let's see. Maybe we found our Megan. Let's see past shows. So let's see what this past show is highlighting. That looked kind of similar to what the gaslighting painting looked like. And so maybe we're at the right place. So here we go. Let's see. We click on read more, and I would say that kind of has similar flavor to that piece of art. What do you think? I'd say so. Anyway, let's see if we can find out a little bit more about who Megan is. So this tells us, just off of a quick Google search, we were able to identify who the artist is. And this helps us do things like understand what the value of this piece of artwork may be. If the artist is still alive, what notoriety, what news coverage this artist may have garnered, which ultimately as collectors makes us a little bit more interested in the piece. Having a piece of artwork that somebody who's been able to display their artwork in some of our favorite museums makes it a little bit more valuable to us as collectors, right? So let's see what this talks about here. Gives us a really good explanation of who Megan is, and that's it. I don't see an actual link to Megan's socials, such as maybe their Instagram page or anything of that nature. But this is the process it takes in order for us to, as collectors, determine if these pieces of artwork are worthy of our bid. So this is not necessarily my cup of tea, but this could be for some of the people who are viewing this video. They may see something like this and say, "Look, that's what I would love to have on my wall." And this is the quality of artwork you have access to. Now, more than likely, this is not going to go for just $42. It's probably going to go for a lot higher than that. But at the very least, what if it doesn't? And so, really, really good opportunity to once again have access to these types of artists, and at a pretty steep discount. She's asking $2,000 for this piece of artwork, where you could probably get it for less than $300. If I wanted to, in some scenarios, they have what is called a buy now option, where maybe there's a starting price in this example of $39.99, but instead of going back and forth and kind of bidding with another interested buyer, I can just say, "Hey, look, just give it to me. I'll purchase it now. And this pushes me to the payment page and the shipping address page, and just simply gets me to a point where I can just purchase it. And within roughly 2 weeks or less, it's going to be on my front porch, right? So I can buy it for $44.99. It comes with a roughly $6 shipping price. And so for under $55, I can have this painting of this parrot on a branch. But in this scenario, I am not in the market for a parrot on the branch. So let's keep shopping. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fine tune my search a little bit. So today I am going to look for specifically paintings and see if I can come across a few good options to consider for my weekly purchase. I usually buy more than one piece of art per week, but I'm trying to limit myself to once a week when it comes to buying these different pieces of art, because there are a number of pieces of art that I have laying around this place that are still in boxes in some cases, but I'm running out of wall space. But these are pretty cool. Two acrylic paintings on canvas, abstract compositions unsigned. The unsigned aspect doesn't necessarily uh, make me want to kind of look into purchasing these, but then again, there's the signature. So yeah, they are signed. So that was actually incorrect. That looked like a signature to me, but not necessarily my cup of tea. And San Francisco usually comes with a bit of a hefty delivery fee. So here, actually, it's not too bad. It's $11, or I'm sorry, $13.94. So $13.94. Where if I were to purchase these two paintings, I can get them for under $50. The only thing it doesn't tell me, okay, here we go. So it talks about the dimensions, 12 by 12, and they're pretty cool pieces of artwork. And once again, these are original pieces of artwork that we're able to purchase for less than $50 in some cases. Whereas, and this is what kind of gets me weary of buying art. Like there are so many pieces of art that are on this site that people potentially purchase for hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And ultimately they find these pieces find themselves on these types of auction blocks, and it in turn gives me an opportunity to take advantage of that same piece of art that somebody may have paid two, three, four, $500 for. Plus we can buy it for less than $100, which is very, very appealing to me as a budget conscious art collector. But so far I'm not seeing anything that I'm ready to pounce on yet. But here's a nice cool painting of a church. I may come back to that. Oh, wait a minute. Wow, that looks good. Street drawing. Interesting. Let's see. Make sure it's original. It's signed as well. I think that says Ann MoMA, MoMMA, if I'm not mistaken. But it is signed. It looks like it's a drawing. And so these are the types of pieces that intrigue me, because with me being in real estate, being from Detroit, I love these different street pieces where it kind of highlights the variety of what a community and what a neighborhood is made up of when it comes to your homes, when it comes to the different aspects of a neighborhood, whether it be trees, and in this scenario you have the electric poles that are kind of lining the streets here. You have a few cool cars. This is a piece of art that definitely is on my radar now. That looks like a good piece of art to consider. And so let's see if it lists. And one thing that is also good for a lot of these pieces is they already come framed. Framing a piece of artwork could cost you anywhere from 50, $100 alone, plus depending on what type of frame you want to put the piece of artwork in. Whereas in this scenario, even though the frame is not fancy and it looks a little beat up, which is actually a value add to me. It looks like it has a bit of character. This is something that if I were to purchase, I can just take it right out the box and hang it right up on an empty rusty nail in the wall. Right. Though that's the type of stuff that really draws me to certain pieces of artwork on this Goodwill website, and this is no different, right? So let me back out, and looks like we have about 10 minutes before this piece is out of play. And so what I would like to do is scroll down. It doesn't show the name of the artist, so maybe that means that they couldn't make it out when it comes to their evaluation of the piece. But it talks about the shipping price of $14.99, the handling price at $3.50. So you're still probably looking at just add an extra $20 on top of whatever price you win this at. And so I'm willing to kind of go all in. Let's say $85 in total. But let's make it 100. Let's say $100. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna subtract the roughly $20 from my $100 budget, and so that brings me down to about roughly $80 max when it comes to my maximum bid. One thing to be mindful of if you are looking at this site, if you're looking for budget conscious art, and you say, hey, look, I'm gonna go check out the Goodwill website as well. The bid process is really straightforward. It's a hard stop at the time that it is assumed for the actual auction to end. And so if it stops at 11 o'clock a.m. and you put your bid in at 10:59 and 50 seconds, and somebody comes in at 10:59 and 59 seconds and places a bid $1 more than yours, they win. And so this isn't a bid process where you get an extra 5 minutes bumped at the end whenever somebody else bids within a certain time of that auction ending. This is an auction where it has a hard stop, and so it's really good for you to consider putting in the maximum amount sooner before rather than later. You don't want to put your amount in and you're like, okay, I still got a little bit of wiggle room, and I'll come back and I'll try to increase it $10 if somebody else outbids me. No, it may be better for you to put that maximum bid in at one time. Now, there are strategies here because in some cases, people buy these pieces of art off of emotion. There are a lot of people that if you were to place a bid on a piece of artwork that you've had your eye on for a bit, you start to get a little bit of an attachment, emotionally attached to that piece of artwork. And when you get outbid, you sometimes, and I'm saying you because this happens to me sometimes, you sometimes find yourself saying, what, skip the budget that I put in place. I'm going to try my best at outbidding this other person because I really like that art. And that's where you could, at the last minute, start to go through this bidding war process with somebody who kind of waited until that last minute to outbid you with the hopes of you not paying attention to the actual end time and date of that piece of artwork, hoping that they're the ones that can kind of outbid you and out strategize you in the process, which is understandable. And I've done that, and today you're going to see me do that as well with this site and with this piece of artwork. And what I mean by that is I'm going to wait until it gets a little bit closer to when it ends, and then I'm going to put my bid in order to not give anybody else who's interested in this piece of artwork any time to kind of think through emotionally if they want to increase their bid, so on and so forth. But let's see what happens, because even with my budget of roughly $80 or $100 in total, or $80 via the maximum bid amount, there may be somebody else just like me sitting on the sideline with a $200 budget that I just can't compete with. All right, so now we're down to roughly 49 seconds. Let's check the bid history. So somebody placed a bid on this 4 o'clock today. And so that means that they are paying attention, I would guess. And what I will do is, and as you can see, I'm refreshing the screen here as I can keep an eye on the actual time. But here, I'm going to go ahead and place my bid and let's see what happens. Currently the high bidder. And so what does that mean? Let's see. Right now it's at 28 bucks. I put the bid in at 80, which I think is a little high, but I put the bid in at 80 bucks and looks like I got it. $28, right? 28 bucks for this original street drawing by Anne Monma. Maybe that's Nye. So maybe I am going to do a little research as to who the artist is. But one of the things that I did with this purchase was I bought it because I liked the art, which I think is very, very important. This is a piece of art that will be hanging up on my walls once I receive it. Love these homes, love the color choice that the artist went with. Just overall, really, really big fan of this piece of art. And so got a little cat here. You got a guy walking out the house. So that's a cool piece of art that I bought for $28. So 28 bucks plus another 20 for shipping and handling. So we're at $50. Can't beat that. That's already framed and already wired for me to just throw it on the wall. This frame looks like it's at least 30, 40 years old. Maybe I'm wrong, but this looks like it has a little bit of history based off of the war wounds I see on this on this frame. And so that also brings a little bit of value to how I kind of quickly come up with why I should buy a piece of art. But let's see if it even shows the dimensions here. It doesn't. That's one of the things that I am a fan of. I'm usually a fan of understanding just how big the piece of artwork is, but at the end of the day, I'm going to assume that this is a decent sized piece of art, and I'll give you an update once it comes in the mail. But that's it for today. I just really wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of see where you can actually purchase very, very inexpensive art from. And it's right at your fingertips. It comes in the mail, comes boxed up really, really nicely. And yeah, at the end of the day, if you're a budget conscious art collector such as myself, this is a really, really good option to consider. A lot of the artists that I do want to collect from sometimes have pieces in the thousands of dollars per piece. And then I've also been turned away from purchasing art because of the limited amounts of pieces that they had, and maybe they were already accounted for, or maybe the artist just didn't want to sell it to me for whatever reason. I've had that happen a handful of times. So at the end of the day, this is a really, really good opportunity for you to get into the art game in a very budget conscious way. And consider checking the site out. But I just appreciate you watching me ramble through this process, and I'm hoping to provide more content with regard to my art collection and other topics as well. I got a lot of different random things that I am intrigued with and interested in, and so I'm going to share it with the world. And maybe it's something that you're a fan of, maybe it's not, but I'm going to just continue to evolve this channel and experiment in a way that just allows for me to just have a different outlet when it comes to sharing certain content with folks that are like-minded such as myself. But I do have a real estate channel called Flux City, where I kind of walk people through my weekly shenanigans when it comes to real estate. And so check out Flux City Detroit. Let me know what you think there. But with that said, you're going to see more content on this channel over the years, and I'm hoping that it brings you some type of true value. But I'll talk to you in the next video.